Cool. So we're about 5 minutes past. I think it's a good time to get started. I want to thank you all for joining. This is our very first open source community call, and it's been quite a journey since the Project B has started. We've learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that we're planning for and delivering in the near future. So I think this is a great opportunity to just give you insight and early feedback into what we've learned, give you the first preview of where we're going next, and we'd love your feedback. So this is meant to be interactive. I'll talk a little bit more later on how best to participate, but this is meant to be a call for the community and to help everyone with their agent development journey. And just so who I am, I'm Maya, and I'm with IBM Research, and I've been working with Project B since day zero. So agenda is kind of split in two. I think so. One of the first goals is just allow the community to provide feedback on core strategy. So we'll walk you through what we're thinking in terms of architectural changes, and then you'll have first eyes on the Q1 roadmap. Second half is going to be more in learning and sharing. So we have a great lineup of people who are power users of BeeAI, and they're going to be showcasing the use cases that they've built and what they've learned along the way. And we'll leave the last few minutes for open questions and open Q&A. So if you feel free to participate in a couple of ways. So if you're comfortable being on screen, you can raise your hand at any moment in time. We will call on you, and then you can intervene or ask questions. Also, if you're camera shy and you prefer to be in the chat, that's also okay. Jenna is going to be helping curate questions, so we'll get to address those. Just one thing, so we're all getting to know each other here. If you are comfortable sharing when you raise your hand or in the chat, just your background and then what's your experience building agents, I think that will help each other get to know each other better. Cool. So I'm going to dive into what are the changes that are coming up, but to better explain some of the changes, we have to start with where we were and what we learned along the way. So this journey of building with AI and building agents started almost a year ago. And the initial hypothesis is building with AI is difficult, and how can we make it easier? What we observed is it took teams, sizable teams with deep expertise to be able to get to a high value use case with AI, whether that's building agents or building some sort of compound AI system. How can we allow people with less technical depth or less deep expertise in AI to make something useful with this technology? I think it's the big hypothesis is this is a technology that's going to democratize the entry point. And we went down this journey of how can we make it easier to build with AI than it was before. In this process, we've released several assets. So we started with the framework, and that is the tooling to build agents, and that was in TypeScript. And the reason that was in TypeScript is because at the same time, we were making a play for the business user. So we were building a business app to allow anyone that works in a company or freelance or out there to make use of AI to automate their workflows. So that was, in a sense, there was some really great synergies there because we learned from our own production needs, and we were able to bake in some of those controls at the framework level. But also we kind of missed out on the Python users. So that was a learning along the way. So we made all of the stack available in the open source, and we've gotten great feedback on some of these. One of the most surprising ones was the web app turned out to be a really fan favorite of developers, and was also really cool learning. So I already gave some foresight on what were some of the learning. So we heard you loud and clear that Python was very much needed, and that is one of our top priorities. So I think we have Tomas and Va on the call. They're working really hard on getting that done, and they're looking for help. So if you are interested, let us know. The second learning is really interesting. Last year, the way that we were talking about agents, we were talking about the promise of fully automating the decision flow of a program. Later in the year, we realized that that sort of paradigm is unattainable with today's models in a way that provides the reliability that you need. So what we're seeing is that the types of agents that are going into production are less flexible and more narrow. So an agent that only has access to one type of tool and that has a very narrow role, and those would be orchestrated in a multi-agent system. And we've had debates on, is it an agent or is it not? But I think the easiest way to kind of understand this technology that we're dealing with is it's a spectrum of agency. Some agents are much more rigid and have more constraints in what they can do, and some of are more flexible. And if we want to be successful here, we have to cater to the whole spectrum of agentic patterns. The third point is we learned that the blank page problem is real. It's really difficult to start from scratch, and we need to invest more in tutorials and reference architectures informed by real use cases. So we have a team that's looking for use cases that they can build. And if you have ideas, we'd love to hear from you. So also that is great candidate if you want to chime in or add to the chat. Fourth one, I also mentioned it. So the GUI drives a lot of value for developers. So GUIs to discover what to build, to help you build and iterate, to help you demo. So we've heard several of you saying, please don't take the UI away. It's such a great asset. And we're definitely listening to that feedback. And then the fifth point is we need to start thinking beyond multi-agent orchestration to what's next. So all of this is feedback that was really helpful to reflect on, to understand if we want to power agent development and production in this year in 2025, what are the core things we need to enable? So from there, we introduce a very early draft of what we will be releasing over the next 6 months. And again, if you have questions on what is being presented, feel free to chime in the chat or raise your hand. I'm also going to give a high-level overview and then pass it over to Matosh. So first things first is we have to do a little bit of a branding change just because there's some like legal implications with the naming. So slight rebranding to BeeAI. We're going to move to a platform play that allows you to build, compose, and deploy runtime agnostic agentic workflows. And this platform is meant to be unopinionated. So you could bring any type of agentic workflow to it and be able to run it easily. So if I walk you through some of the core building blocks, you're looking maybe at the bottom of the screen at Agent Core. Agent Core is exactly what we had at the framework level. So all the building blocks to build single agents, multiple agents, architect them together, provide different tools. The new thing that we're introducing is the agent communication protocol. So this is a framework and runtime agnostic way of passing messages between different agents. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. We're still in the early stages of ideation on what this could be. We're going to invest significantly in having an agent catalog, a catalog not only built in BeeAI, but built with any framework that is popular and that exists out there, or it could be just a repo, an individual implementation of an agent use case and not a framework. And that also are things that will populate our library. The last box from the top are the composable GUIs. One of the key areas we got excited about in the agent building space is finally breaking out of chat as the main modality of interacting with AI. And we think agents is going to power more interesting and more diverse sets of GUIs. And the vision here is, what if, based on your agent's capabilities, you could dynamically compose the right interface to power the human agent interaction paradigm that is needed. So this is more visionary in where we're going next. And this is taking on the learnings of how powerful the GUI was in our initial release. Of course, we're going to double down on the lifecycle tools, and then we're going to heavily invest in extensions, not only to LLMs and tools, but also to other agent frameworks. And this is just a broader view of the slide that I showed you before. So if you look at extensions, we're looking into integrations with CrewAI and LangGraph. As priority citizens, if you have recommendations for more, we're all ears. Tools, you might have seen our release and integration with the model context protocol, and that's something that we've been very bullish about, and we're doubling down more there. And then for observability, we are going to integrate with Open Inference and Phoenix. So these are both great open source projects that allow you to do a lot of interesting stuff in terms of observability. So Agent Core, again, I think these are all the modules that you might already be familiar with from the Bee framework. The big difference is we're going to have Python parity with TypeScript going forward. And then the lifecycle tools, one of the first things we're going to bring back as a playground, as a UI, and then all the lifecycle tool capabilities to go from idea all the way to deployment. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Matosh to like go into a layer deeper of the how. And then Matosh, it would be great if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Matosh. I'm technical lead here in IBM Research and software engineer as well. Maya, if it's okay by you, I'm going to steal the screen and focus or be able to focus on the diagram a little bit closer so I don't distract people with the whole picture. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
I believe it is. Okay, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna take it like step by step. So this is a very simple diagram. This is not really architecture or anything like that, but it should kind of tell you a story of what we are trying to do with the platform. And I will start with the simplest path with the agents here. So imagine you have agents written in Python, TypeScript, or you have agents written in Docker container. It doesn't matter what the runtime is. What we are coming with is what we call Agent Communication Protocol, ACP, that allows us to wrap these agents and communicate with them through that standard protocol. ACP can probably, people are probably wondering what's this ACP. And you have probably heard about MCP, Model Context Protocol. So we took MCP because we like the design and created or extended it with our own things for support for agents. So that's ACP. And we are adding things that are slightly different from what Model Context Protocol did for tools and resources and prompts and etc. And we came up with our own version. At this moment, we are still extending, so we are fully compatible with Model Context Protocol. And we know that MCP community is working on, or the Anthropic team is working on the support for agents. But at this moment, we are forked kind of, we are extending, and at some point, we will see if we are going to contribute back to MCP on path. But anyway, what we are introducing is a concept of providers. So you can think that there can be multiple agent providers. One of the agent providers is actually our framework, for example. But the provider can be a GitHub repository. The provider can be a service that runs somewhere in the cloud. As far as the provider, provides kind of a manifest file that describes how the agents within it can be run, it can be added to the platform. And the platform is something that you can run locally. It can also be deployed. It's up to you. I will go in a couple of seconds in the way how you actually can interact with the platform. There's multiple ways how you do it. But the core concept here is it has a catalog of agents. These agents are coming from different providers. These agents might be running locally on your laptop, but they might also be running remotely. We are going to be supporting both of the ways. There's going to be a catalog of tools. Mostly we are going to be leveraging the MCP protocol for this. And there's going to be things like evaluation observation, and lastly, orchestration. I'm not going to go into the details of the orchestration, but the key takeaways here are, by doing this platform, the platform is going to be framework agnostic. So you can introduce agents that are written in GrooveAI, LangGraph, AutoChain, whatever framework you like. You can write them in whatever language you want. And also, I mentioned that before, but the platform is runtime agnostic. So if you prefer writing, agents in Docker, you can do so. If you prefer using Python code, you can do that as well. And since we have the ACP server, we also have SDK. So since we have SDK, you can communicate with these agents directly through that SDK. And I will get to it in the next slide here. which kind of showcase the possible 4 main kind of experiences you can get from using the platform. So first one is there is a catalog. There is a catalog of agents, and we will have a user interface that you can interact with the catalog. So you can think of it, you build a catalog, you kind of, you build an agent, you build a user interface for that agent, and now you want to share it with others. Right? You can add it to any provider. You can add it back to our main provider in the BeeAI framework. You can host it in GitHub. It's up to you. But you will have the possibility to host the UI within the agent. So anyone who running the platform can actually run the agent and get the user interface with it as well and interact with the agent through the user interface. We are focusing on the CLI experience. So whoever is experienced or knows Olama, so this is very similar. You can use CLI to list available agents that are available within the platform. Through the CLI, you can add the providers. So you can say, I don't have an example here just for the simplicity of it, but you can add providers from GitHub, for example, so they would add additional agents to the platform, and you can start the agents. Once you start the agents, you will get a ACP server running, which you can communicate directly through the SDK. You might get the UI layer running as well. Depends whether the agent has a UI layer implemented or not. This is completely optional. And then you will have a CLI experience that you can actually interact with the agent through the CLI right away. The other experience you can have as a developer is how does it work when you build agents? And this is very simplified way, but pretty much you write your agent in whatever language, and you just need to wrap it in the provider. Provider is just a very simple wrapper that you just need to comply with the interfaces of the ACP protocol. I mentioned here framework because we have in our framework we have the ACP server, or sorry, the provider available out of the box, so you don't have to do much. You just register your agent with the provider, and that's how you build agent that actually, once you do that, automatically pops up in the catalog of agents in the platform, and you can interact with it. The other experience is what if you want to consume one of the agents that are actually already available in the platform. So you're not building, you are using, right? And that's pretty much through the ACP SDK. Yeah, and that's kind of it in a very kind of nutshell way. I didn't go into details, but if anyone has, would like to go into more details, especially in the ACP protocol, we are open to just send a message in Discord. And
I think
I'm
we
going to
can
hand it
take
back to you.
Yeah, I think we
we
can
can
take a
definitely
few
take some questions.
questions. I know, Jenna, you've been monitoring the chat. I see it's been active. Are there like 2-3 questions we should prioritize for this at this stage?
Yeah. So the team has been doing a great job chiming in and responding, but one question that just came up, what are the plans for community contribution of tools?
That's a great question. Matosh, do you want to talk about MCP a bit? Matosh.
You mean in terms of the community contributions of the agents?
So the question was, what are the plans, community contribution of tools? And I think we had a little strategy shift from building our own tools to consuming tools built with MCP. So if there's a tool that you want that we don't support, your best bet is to contribute it to the MCP, and the MCP makes it really great to wrap tools. And then the benefit you have is you'll be able to use the tool not only with Bee, but with a lot of other repos as well. I hope I answered that right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. I think one that I'm seeing here is, what functionality would the agent catalog provide? Would it be only a listing of available agents, or something that could be imported and reused within BeeAI? Also, how would you decide what gets on the catalog with 1,000 agents currently available, which I think are great questions. And Matosh, feel free to delegate to others if you don't want to take on all the answer yourself.
I mean, I probably mentioned the functionalities of the catalog already, right? So the obvious thing is the platform. Again, the concept of the providers, I think, is the most significant one. It's up to you what agents you want to use. All right. If you don't want to use for example, the out-of-the-box agents we would be including in the framework, in the BeeAI framework, you don't have to. You can just unregister the provider of these agents. You can bring your own. You can bring, agents that are built in-house that are not even exposed to the internet. So there is a flexibility in there. And obviously, once you get to the point where there is a lot of agents, we will be in BeeAI framework. We will have a curated and verified list of out-of-the-box agents that we verified are implemented with the best practices in mind. That we will be providing on how to build agents, and also verifying that there is no security risks involved of using these agents. And
Yeah.
we are planning to do some rating system, but yeah, my big two.
I was gonna see if Anna Fuchs was on the call, because I've seen some early designs of the catalog, and like there are gonna be like some filtering mechanisms. But so there's like two parts, is like, okay, maybe I have a certain API key, so that's a limiting factor for what agents I can deploy. But then let's say there's 8 different agents doing the same use case. So we're longer term thinking of vetting and crowdsourcing feedback.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's some ideas on benchmarking. Sorry, did I miss it? Did Anna try to intervene? It's difficult for me to see who's trying to talk. Okay, I'm assuming not on the call. Yeah, we'll share more details as we go. But fantastic questions. Keep it up.
I think it was
So I'm
actually
gonna
just an
go-
issue of permissions to get off mute. So apologies to everyone. We are still learning this version of Teams. It's really new to us.
No worries. I'm gonna move on just for time. So I wanted to capture what will concretely change for you, especially that a lot of you on the call are already power users of the framework. So there is a breaking change coming in the next 1-2 weeks because of the branding that we have to do. So package names, etc., repo name is going to change to BeeAI. The next change, which might be more of a positive, is we're moving to a mono repo, meaning I think you've seen it from what Matosh demoed. So within the context of like one repo and one experience, it's going to be very easy to go from code to UI and then to deployment. So it's all going to be captured as part of one user experience instead of like spread out as multiple things. I'm sure also the Python parity is going to make a lot of people happy. We have some aggressive dates. So we're going public with an alpha launch next week, and then we're aiming for full parity later in the month. We're also changing how agents are encapsulated. So before, if you wanted to like operate at the BStack BAPI layer, you had to use the BAPI. That's no longer a requirement. And this actually brings more flexibility. So right now we're looking at encapsulating agents as just a piece of code, and that aligns more to like the LangGraph way of thinking about stuff and the CrewAI way. In terms of observability, I think we started with our own solution, but after carefully looking at open source alternatives, we think that 2 projects from Arise AI are really great, which are Open Inference and Phoenix. So in the near term, that will be the primary way to do tracing and observability for anything that you do on BeeAI. And then finally, and I know a lot of you really like some of these assets, but we are no longer actively supporting BStack, BUI, BAPI, and BObserve. But on the positive side, we're racing next month to have a mono repo, one integrated experience that you can easily deploy UI. The UI is going to be much more lightweight and much more flexible. So we're just kind of taking something away to bring something better based on feedback. And it was difficult to take those existing assets and modulate them in the way we needed them to be. I'm just going to pause here because I know there could be a lot of questions on what I just said. And then, yeah, if also feel free to raise your hand. Jen, is any burning questions we should go over?
I don't see any right now. Sorry, I'm trying to follow with the answers in here too.
There's a question
Yeah, I
about
think
deployment. So where can it be deployed,
Where can it be
local
deployed?
clouds?
Yeah, Matosh, do you want to take the deployment question?
Yeah, so we are going in the way of using build packs at this moment. So not only build packs, but Docker. So it depends how you write your agent, right? So if you write your agent in Docker, the deployment is very simple in that sense. With build packs, it's also simple. It's not something that we are going to be measuring on this month or next month, but something we are going to try to measure in 2 months and after that. So deployments is serious stuff for us, but we first need to solve, or we are trying to solve, the local experience for people to, get the ease of use in a locally run environment.
So strategically, it's like a stepwise thing. So let's start with local. Let's nail the experience for that. But of course, we know that that's the day zero, right, or the day one. But we know that the real value is going to come moving to enterprise deployments. So that will absolutely come. And we've got great team members with deep experience working with Kubernetes and all of the kind of heavyweight reliable, scalable solutions to help keep the team honest there. So.
So the last part of the first section of this is roadmap, and I know I get weekly DMs on roadmap, so you're gonna get to see it first if I'm able to work this out. So I think I'm in full screen. So you're seeing now, next, later columns. Just to orient you, now we're looking at February. Next, March, April. Later is later. So we have a really aggressive roadmap of what we want to deliver by Q1. So I mentioned parity with TypeScript. So Python is something that we're sprinting towards. We've also heard your feedback on being less opinionated about what a single agent is. So the single agent construct in B is a React, and we're rethinking this. And it's not about moving it from one to another, but it's about providing more options so we're less opinionated about what an agent is. So moving to a monorepo, use cases and templates. You're actually going to see demos of DeepSeek and Granite going forward, and we're going to be doubling down on what we're doing here. Also heard your feedback on improving docs, and that's something that we're going to be doubling down on, and then we'll have our own doc site. And then finally, the integration with Open Inference and Phoenix, which are both great open source projects that should be on your radar. Next, we're doing a really cool MVP with the agent communication protocol. So we want to showcase how you can run and orchestrate different runtimes. More about that next month. We'll have a MVP of the agent library. So we'll curate some of the best open source agents that exist out there and put them in one place that is easy to deploy. We'll both have a CLI and a GUI try experience that is more modular. We'll invest in more multi-agent interfaces. So the current interface that exists at the framework level is a sequential orchestration. We're looking into more patterns, and if there's patterns that you're seeing, we'd love to hear about that. And then we'll start integrating other agent frameworks like CrewAI and LangGraph. And then, yeah, finally, the vision of composable GUIs and like accelerating the life cycle of building an agent and making the optimization process easier are all like longer term ideas that we're really excited about. So shifting gears now, we're gonna go into demo mode. And first up, I have Johan. I think, Johan, you should be able to mute and show your camera, correct?
Yeah, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So over to you, Johan, and it would be great if you could start with a quick intro on who you are.
Yeah, of course. So first, thank you for the great presentation. I'm Johan from IBM Israel. I'm working in the Build Lab, this part of the ecosystem of IBM. And I'm leading a team that are AI engineer and architect. We are working mainly with startups. And one of the case I would like to present you where we use BeeAI. It's actually a startup that wanted to build some agent on top of its own platform. And I will explain it more in detail. So let's say this startup, what they are doing, it's like a generic API based on legacy system, for example, IBM I, IBM Z that don't have API. So they are providing to their customer access to this data by API. This is what they know to do. And what they wanted to add now as an added value for that, this is an agent that can talk with this API and at the end can interact with this kind of legacy system. Legacy systems are very complicated to extract information from them. So such agent is a real value. If you think about ERP system or CRM system that are built in the past of this kind of legacy, such agent can bring a big value. So this is a POC that we build with them. The most important feature of the solution was actually the custom tools that we build on the API of this startup. So we use we also try to use the automatic conversion of Swagger API to tools, but it was very at the beginning, I think, of the release of this feature. So we finally decided to build our own tools that called the external API, and we add on top of them some standard tools like the Python environment, because sometimes we have complicated questions to ask to the system, and also skills. I mean, access to external data like Google. Think about the case, for example, customer would like to ask the ERP about the status of an order of a vendor, and then to transform it into a mail and to send it directly from this agent. So this mix of external feature, API, and skills of the LLM make it very powerful. So what we used as technology stack to build this agent is first, of course, the BeeAI framework. We use the B stack, so including the UI. For the model, we used the Llama model provided by Watsonix AI. And the tool, so again, it was Python, Google, and the legacy API. Everything was deployed on the IBM SaaS, on the container, on the Docker on IBM SaaS. Maybe some key learning I would like to share with you. This is about the API. We identified that the biggest challenge was to have a good API, to have a good agent at the end. And the first API of this startup was very simple, like just without filter, without any aggregation, attribute, etc. So what we did, we built a middle layer that make this API more intelligent. We had filter or the aggregation and everything that can make the agent work better with API. So this is the first challenge. The second one was the performance. And for the moment, at the POC level, we didn't manage to correct it, to improve it. There is also a very interesting summary we did about the POC because we actually compared 3 different methodology. The first one is to use BeeAgent as a framework. The second one was to build a custom LangChain agent. And the third was to use an SQL agent behavior, also custom one. What we discovered very quickly that with B, we got much better result, but the performance was much more manageable with other agents. But again, we didn't expect to manage it at the POC level, and this is probably our next step with this agent. So we can go to the demo. I will show you a quick demo. So this is the simple B agent that is connected to this legacy system. This is IBM I system, an ERP built on that. Okay, and the user is asking simple status about orders. So here, identification of the tools. The tool that is used is the list order that call the API of order with our additional layer of filtering. And then the tools is also learn to provide always separately the open and the close order. So there is also some prompt engineering in every tools, in every endpoint of the API. So, okay, got it. Can you check if we have enough stock to fulfill our open order? So this is an interesting question, because in this case, we need some calculation. We need to check the order, we need to check the stock in parallel, and we need to compare between them. So here the Python environment is doing a great job of calculation. So we have first previously we had the order. Here we have the product and the stock of the product and other tools. And then we have the Python environment that is calculating the difference and providing this answer if we have yes or no enough quantity to fulfill the order of the customer. Another thing we managed to in this POC, and this is quite important actually in most of our project, this is the negative question. So we want the agent to do a great job, but we want the agent to do a great job only on what he should do and not on other things. So for example, here we ask, what about the stock of the fuel pumps? And this company is not providing pumps or fuel at all. This is something else. So here again, the agent checking the API, and on this kind of question, we also get very good answer. So okay, so the product is not in the answer. The agent is answering that this is not an existing product in the catalog of the enterprise. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Johan. This was a great demo, and like it's great to see how like we're able to solve real company needs with this technology, and I think that's the right fit. If there are any questions on this one, feel free to drop it in the chat. And then just for time's sake, I'm gonna move to the next one. And the next demo is by Graham White. I believe Graham unfortunately could not be with us live, so he pre-recorded his demo of running the Granite open source models with Bee, and I'm gonna play that for you.
Hello. I'm one of the developers involved in supporting the IBM Granite models on the Bee agent framework. So today I'm going to give you a quick demo on how we can use Granite and Bee together. I'm going to start the story on the IBM Granite docs website. So if you search in your browser for IBM Granite docs, you'll turn up here and scroll down and you'll find there are some recipes for agents. One of those recipes is our agent framework with Granite. So if you click through, you'll come through to our cookbook, which shows you how to use IBM Granite with Bee together. There are some prerequisites here for you to get set up with in terms of how you will be running your LLM service in the background. I'm going to be showing you using Ollama today so that everything is running locally here on my laptop. So I originally followed the Linux instructions. This is a Linux laptop, but there are instructions here for Mac or for Windows as well. But you can use any of the background LLM services that are supported by the Bee agent framework in order to get to the Granite models. Next, you have to download and install the Bee agent framework, and there are again some instructions on how to get started with that, but basically clone and install the repository if you're familiar with that standard practice. And then we arrive at the getting started for our simple guide for how to use Granite and Bee together. Scrolling down a little bit further is actually a second example here for how we can call out to Wikipedia using Granite and Bee, and this is a slightly more advanced example. Today, I'm going to show you the getting started example. So if we go over to my console here, you can see that I've already cloned the repository, I've cd'd into the directory, and I've installed all the dependencies. So this is the first part of the cookbook already having been completed. Next, we are going to look to run the example, and that is in step 2 here. And in order to connect to Ollama, I have already set up my .env template so that I am using Ollama in the back end. So if I copy this particular example command, come back over to my terminal, I'm going to paste that in here. And now I'll enter the query. You can see in my other window I'm running Olama, so now you can see that the model is actually being started on my laptop here, and my GPU will be used to accelerate the decoding of the LLM as this particular query goes through. This does take a little while on my machine, so I'm just going to pause the recording for a moment and we'll pop back on when it's completed. Okay, welcome back. You can now see that the agent has completed its React loop and the user input was entered here according to the command that we ran initially up here. And you can see in the red items here that the React loop has been printed out. So we followed through what the user wants to be able to do. We are going through a tool call with some structured JSON inputs and outputs. Finally, we get the response from the tool that we've called, and the final answer gets printed out back to the user, telling me what the current weather is at this particular time in London today. So that's a demonstration of the basic Granite usage with Bee. As I said earlier, you can go on and you can complete the more advanced version. We'll call out to Wikipedia as well. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed the demo.
Cool. Well, thanks to Graham for this demo. I'm personally really bullish on fully local agents, so running with smaller models. Even there's a trade-off in performance, but what we're learning is if you orchestrate multiple small agents together, you're able to do something really powerful. And Jenna will be doing a demo on that later. Before we get to Jenna, we have Michael Desmond on doing a really cool demo that is Open Canvas inspired. Michael, do you have issues with? Okay, yep, can hear you. No issues.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, no issues. Yeah, hi, I'm Mike. I work out of research in Yorktown, and I'm a contributor to the Bee agent framework. So I'm going to do a quick demo of it's called Bee Canvas. It's basically a co-editing agent inspired by Open Canvas. So if you're familiar with, you'll see this kind of functionality in Anthropic and even in OpenAI, where basically you can go into a mode with an AI agent where it's a kind of you're co-editing content. So it's helping you to write something. It's helping you to write some code. And there's this notion of an artifact that is kind of a persistent, piece of content that you can chat about with the agent. You can ask it to update it. You can edit it yourself, and so on. So what Bee Canvas is it's a kind of a proof of concept of that type of that style of agent using Bee as the implementation. So the features. Very simply, you can generate and update co-editable artifacts, markdown and code. So basically, you can write some markdown document, or you can write a piece of code along with the agent. You can ask it to make changes and so on and so forth. A more advanced version of this would be an interactive user interface where you could kind of highlight things and say, okay, I want you to change this, make this, remove this, rewrite this particular piece, or change the entire style of the output. And then typically you would have a chat on the side where you can kind of chat with the agent. So the tech stack that I've used, BeeAI workflows. So this is one of the new features that we've put into the framework is this workflows, which is essentially kind of a graph construct, and it makes it so you can write really powerful agents by decomposition. And then for this particular demo, I'm going to show you, I'm using Granite 318 billion VO Llama. So it runs locally. And just before I jump into the demo, so key learnings. So you could do things like co-editing agents with Granite if you decompose your agent into multiple kind of more focused pieces. So you don't need huge. I mean, you'll get better performance from bigger models, but you can actually do some really interesting things with smaller models when you have a construct like a workflow or a graph that you can organize your agent execution. I'm going to show you a co-editing agent via the command line. An agent like this typically needs a UI to function. So this idea of having reusable and configurable UIs is really important for agents like this, because it's great. You can test it and do it without a UI, but it really needs a UI to shine. And I think the other learning is, of course, that agents can do more than just like chat. You can do really interesting kind of interactions with agents that involve more than just, you know, a two-way chat. Okay, so I'm going to quickly share. Hopefully you can see that. Just give me a thumbs up or something.
I see the slide. Yeah, okay, I see a video.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so this is the architecture of this agent. So if you're familiar with things like LangGraph, this should be fairly familiar to you. So basically, the user sends a message, the message gets routed. The agent will either generate an artifact or rewrite an existing artifact. So there's a kind of a notion of state here. There's the artifact, there's the current artifact, which is part of the state. There's the user message. There's the user conversation. So generate artifact, rewrite artifact, and then the next node is to follow up. So basically, once the agent has produced the artifact, it will have a follow-up message just to tell you what it's done. And then there's also another route through the graph where basically if you ask a general question and it doesn't require an update to the artifact, it'll go ahead and just answer you.
Mike, sorry to
so that's kinda
interrupt.
what it is.
Someone asked in the chat if
Yeah.
you could zoom in.
Zoom in?
Or like
I'm
even
kind of-
your yeah, perfect.
Is that yeah. And if you've seen Open Canvas, this is like a simpler version of the Open Canvas agent. The Open Canvas agent has nodes, a set of nodes for when you've selected things, and you can directly interact with the artifact. But this one is this is just a proof of concept, so it's a little bit simpler. And also this one doesn't have a UI where you could actually select things, so it doesn't really make sense. So that's the architecture, and this is implemented with the Bee workflows. The code, if you're interested, you can look at the code and see how it's implemented. So then this is the demo. I recorded this. Hopefully you can see this playing. But basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask my agent to help me write a web scraping tool in Python. So you'll see it goes through this process of going through the various workflow steps. So it does the root user message, generate artifact, and then follow-up artifact. And then what you get out of this agent is you get an artifact. This is the co-editing thing that you and the agent are going to work on together. So you imagine that would show up in a UI somewhere. So this is the thing that I asked it to write, and then the response is, you know, your web scraping class is ready. So it responds to me as a chat too. So it tells me, please review and let me know if any adjustments. So the next thing I do here, if I recall correctly, is I ask it to add some type annotations, because I like type annotations. So what it's going to do here is it's going to take that artifact, that web scraper, it's going to rewrite it. In this case, it's not going to generate a new one. And it's going to add these type annotations. So this is this construct here, this thing that we're working on together stays persistent. And I can ask the agent to make changes to it. So so I've added type annotations, review and let me know. So you have to imagine that this kind of sits on the side and is there all the time, and we're chatting on the left-hand side. And then the last thing I think I ask it to do, so could you add a main, like a main function, just to show me how I would use this class. So again, this is going to be a rewrite of the artifact. It's not going to generate a new one. It's going to write it based on the existing artifact. And you'll see here it's added this kind of little piece of code at the bottom, which is the main function. So I can see basically how you use this. And then just to finish up, I just wanted to show you can also kind of ask questions about the artifact, which don't result in a change to the artifact. So basically I asked it about this piece of user agent thing here, where you say, you know, it adds this user agent string, and it just tells me that it's to kind of mimic and not get blocked. It's to mimic a kind of a human browser. But you'll see here that it routed user message and then it replied to the general input. So there was no change to the artifact. Yeah, so that's it.
Cool. that was fantastic. And you're really squeezing out a lot of power from very small models. So that is really awesome to see. I think we're going to see a similar, I'm excited for the demo you have to have a UI. I'm hoping we get to do that soon. But on a similar spirit of squeezing out value from small models, I'll let Jenna present our DeepSeek R1 demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Maya. Just this. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Winkler. I'm a product manager on the BeeAI team. Today, I'm sharing a multi-agent system designed for complex tasks like competitive research and market analysis, powered by DeepSeek R1, and it runs 100% local. The challenge today is that existing solutions rely on expensive proprietary models, and they have limited customization power, so that's what we wanted to address with this use case. Our system breaks down competitive research into clear steps, which include identifying an industry, finding competitors, gathering insights from the web, analyzing those insights with DeepSeek, and then generating a final report with documented sources. So you can see exactly where all the information came from. And then all of this throughout the process of the system running, it's all logged for you to monitor right there in the terminal. So our tech stack includes the BeeAI framework, of course, DeepSeek R1 8B via Ollama, and then Tavily API via LangChain. And lastly, for some key learnings here, we did some initial testing with DeepSeek 8B as a single agent, and the results were pretty underwhelming. So we found that performance significantly improved when we broke down the tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, and then we pieced those together into our workflow. We also discovered that maintaining a clear separation between data collection functions like Tavily search and then DeepSeek's analysis kept the model more focused, and it reduced any hallucinations. I would say that our key takeaway from this work is that with the right architecture, open source models can deliver enterprise level performance while keeping data 100% local and under our control with the ability to customize. So that's been pretty cool. All right, I can share my screen here and showcase the demo. So for the purposes of time, I do have over here on the left-hand side, I pre-ran everything. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes to run. I'm going to initiate it over here on the right so you can kind of see how I get started. But the idea is that you initially enter an industry, and you can optionally specify competitors that you want to focus in on, or you can allow the system to identify the competitors itself. So here the industry is the open source AI frameworks, and I'm analyzing Crew AI, Relevance, and a few others. So when you run it, you can see that the initial response is we have an analyst that initiates the workflow, and you can see it starts going through the loop of how this workflow works. So first, it generates the competitors. In this case, it's pulling from what I specified. It will select the first competitor and run through the flow in terms of doing the web research, analyzing that research, and then it will follow up on the next competitor in the list, and it will continue that cycle until it gets through all of the competitors. And then the next cool thing is that once the initial report is created, our system's designed to have a reflection loop. So it then follows up on the report, and it will reinitiate the whole workflow, and it will do this up to 3 times. And so we can see once this system completes, this is what the final report looks like. So you can see it gives us a markdown form of, it has a title, what the analysis is for which competitors, and then for each competitor, it has a list explaining just all of its findings from the search. And you can see here, it documents all the sources that were used throughout the process. And then it also includes some reflection notes at the bottom for how it could be further improved. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you, Jenna. This was really cool. So just big round of applause to Jenna, Johan, Mike, Graham. These were fantastic showcases. I learned a lot from seeing this. We have 1 minute to go. So any feedback on this format and what we can improve is much appreciated. I've heard some requests for office hours. So maybe we can take one question. Thomas, do you want to ask your question? Or I don't know if that was a hand raise or a clap. Okay. So yeah,
should be a clap.
Okay, that was meant to be a clap. Cool. So if you have any feedback or if remaining questions, I think Discord is the place to be. And then we're going to be asking your inputs on how we improve this. Apologies for some of the logistics. I messed up setting up the Microsoft thing, so sorry. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.